freezing in the winter, like snow.
Okay. So it's kind of extremes. Okay. Who grew up in McKinleyville?
Oh, I did.
Mitchell, tell me about McKinleyville.
It's really fun.
Okay. Does anybody want to talk about where they grew up? Yes. Guys, let's not talk while Tyler's talking, please. Go ahead, Tyler.
I grew up down south in the Bay Area.
Okay.
It's like San Francisco, Alameda County.
Okay.
It was very hot, like really hot, like 80 on average during the summer.
Okay.
The winter, the lowest I've ever recorded it is probably 30 degrees in the winter.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was the culture like? Was it like Humboldt County?
No.
Well, it was next to like big city like San Francisco,
Okay.
so it wasn't.
So near the city. Is it kind of suburban?
Yeah. Pretty much.
Suburban.
There were lots of hills.
Okay.
There were like lots of hills.
Yes.
I lived in like a lake.
Blue Lake? Okay. Tell me about Blue Lake. What was it like growing up out there?
There's a river.
There's a river. Okay. All right. Well, hold on a second, Ray.
Are you gonna move the camera?
No. Don't worry about the camera. Okay. So, what you guys are talking about, we didn't talk much about historical time period, right? That's the context. Because most of you guys grew up in this time period. If I was talking about my experience, I grew up a little bit before you, right? My generation, they call it the millennials. I was a kid in the 90s. I came of age. My teen years were in the early 2000s. That's why they call us that, because we came of age in the turn of the millennium. You guys are calling Gen Z. They haven't come up with a cool name yet, but don't worry, they will.
Gen Z's not cool, like I said.
Gen Z they're calling the digital learners, the digital generation. You guys think really quick, so that's your historical time period.
So we're better than everyone?
Possibly, yeah. So let's look at some of the details your fellow students shared, right? We shared, a lot of students share stuff about the place and the environment, right? We heard about Whitethorn is rural. The roads are long and windy. There's some beaches. Cowfield is where you grew up, right? Different contrasts of hot and cold in the wintertime. Some other environmental factors about Idaho. Ray said it was beautiful. You want to add, Ray?
Oh yeah. Also, it gets like 115 in a day, and in winter. I don't know why I'm saying this. In winter, you probably can't go to school because it gets. They actually say if it got below negative 15, you couldn't go to school, but it got like around negative 38.
Mm-hmm. Wow. That's unthinkably cold for me.
Yeah, it was very
warm.
Ray, you also talked about.
Actually, that was scary.
Ray also talked about logging and hunting. Which element of setting is that?
Logging.
Yeah, look up here.
That was like hunting was like for fun. They just did that.
Right, yeah. So, I mean, logging would fall under economics and livelihood, right? That's what people did for a living. Hunting is part of the culture, right? That's part of the way of life, part of the leisure. So all of these different elements of setting, the time period you're born in, the environmental factors, the economics, the livelihood, what people do for a living, what people do for fun, culture and community. Ray, you talked about where you grew up in Idaho was very Christian. That's part of the culture, right? And then I'm always hearing comparisons between Arcata and McKinleyville, right? Some students are like, oh, you seem like you're from Arcata. They'll tell me that. I think it's my beanie. I don't know what that means. But what do people say? Yeah, and then some of the students in first period described McKinleyville as having hillbillies. I put it in quotes, right? And then Arcata as having hicks and hillbillies. And then Arcata as having hippies, right? Yeah. So those words are describing, however you view them, those words are describing the culture and the community. Just here in northern Humboldt County, between Arcata and McKinleyville, there's these two different senses of the setting, right? And the people who are raised in these different areas become different. So that's what I want you guys to think about as we talk about the Great Depression. how someone's setting affects how they develop. And we're going to translate that to the novel, right? How the setting affects the development of the characters. Yes, Ray?
Are we actually reading about the Great Depression?
We are going to be learning about it and about...
So we're going to read The Grapes of Wrath. That's like the longest book you can ever read.
We're setting up for To Kill a Mockingbird.
Okay. That's like 40 pages of how hot it is.
Yes, that's Steinbeck.
Grapes of Wrath.
Okay. So what is the setting for To Kill a Mockingbird? Don't look.
Alabama.
Yeah. So
Smaller world.
it's not set in a city, right? It's a rural, small town. That's the physical setting, right? The culture. The historical time period is what? Early 1930s, which is during the Great Depression. Okay, so that affects their lives. And so now we're going to talk about basically what life was like during the Great Depression. Okay. So keep out your pieces of paper that you use for the bell ringer. And I want you, while we're watching this, we're going to talk about it afterwards, but while we're watching it, I want you guys to pay attention to not just what the people are saying, but how you are reacting to it in your own minds. What are you feeling? What kind of images come to mind? What sounds and sensations do you experience? Also think about the elements of the setting that we just talked about: historical, economic, cultural, and I'm forgetting the last one all of a sudden. Okay, it's not coming to mind. Oh, okay. So since I forgot, here you guys go. These are the elements of setting I want you thinking about, right? Historical time period, place and environment, economics and livelihood, culture and community, okay? So we're going to watch about 6 minutes of this.
Yes.
Yeah, I got the lights. Oh, go ahead. Thank you. Go ahead and write notes, yeah. You don't have to, but... If you guys want to jot down some notes for the discussion afterwards, I'm going to put the elements of setting up here for you, okay?
Let me assert my firm belief that the only thing we have to fear is fear itself.
As Franklin D. Roosevelt spoke these simple and inspiring words in 1933, Americans from coast to coast, weary from years of economic hardship, were willing to take the freshly minted president at his word. He offered them hope, which was all that many people had left. The economic hardships brought on by the Great Depression had reached a pinnacle by the spring of 1933. On March 4th, an unprecedented event had occurred. Each and every bank had closed its doors. For some, this measure was only temporary, but for a large number, the economic crisis was a permanent reality. The banking system was near collapse. A quarter of the labor force was unemployed, and prices and production were down by a third from their 1929 levels. During his first inaugural speech, President Roosevelt looked over the tense crowd in front of the Capitol, anxiously gathered before him, and with unquestionable conviction stated, "This nation asks for action, and action now."
My father was a cotton mill worker, and so we moved a lot. By the time I was 21 years old, I had moved 21 times. But we didn't have a big house back then, and you didn't have carpet or anything like that. You had linoleum floor, wooden floors with linoleum rugs down on top of it to keep the air out, because some of the places we lived, you could see the ground through the floor.
We ran a country grocery store. We ran a grist mill and a cotton gin. In the South, cotton was the king, and you couldn't get anything for the cotton. And then the government came along and had us take and cut out cotton production.
Back in the Depression, we saw a lot of people come from southeast Kentucky and eastern Tennessee because they wanted to get better jobs. There was nothing going in the coal mines. And so we had a lot of people come in that were in bad shape. And they also went across the river to Cincinnati, and there were almost little enclaves of those people hoping they'd get someday up to Detroit.
People found ways to get money, to do a job, to get employment, to keep the family going.
In the first 100 days of the new administration, 15 measures flowed from the White House to Congress. 15 new laws assured absolute government action to employ the jobless, to improve the Tennessee Valley, to support crop prices, to prevent home foreclosures, to ensure bank deposits, and to stabilize the economy. Franklin D. Roosevelt called these programs a New Deal for the nation.
My mother got a job with the WPA, one of the New Deal agencies. She worked in the public library, and I think she really enjoyed that job. She talked about it a lot, and it's the only job that she ever had in her entire life. Later on, after she married, she did not work outside the home, but she talked a lot. When she would take us to the library as small children, she would tell us about her experiences working for the WPA in the public library.
During the Depression, many people from Oklahoma and other states affected by the Dust Bowl moved to the San Joaquin Valley looking for work. Some families were lucky and were able to get good jobs in Tehachapi, working in the cement plant and the Women's State Prison. My parents bought a house on the edge of town, and we had no gas or sewer line. I can still remember when the gas line was laid through the alley, the workers wrapping a material that looked like saran wrap around the pipes. The house next door was rented mostly by families from Oklahoma. One family built a small square shack behind the house using rolls of roofing material to cover the outside walls, and migrant families would live in the shack for a while before moving somewhere else looking for work. Our house was close to the railroad tracks, and I remember men knocking on our back door asking for water and something to eat. My mom would make them a bologna sandwich and white bread. Back then, these men were not called homeless people, but were called hobos or tramps that rode the trains.
A lot of people remember what things cost, but they don't remember what they made. And that makes a whole lot of difference. You know, you can buy a Coke for a nickel or a hamburger for a nickel. The trouble was you didn't have a nickel to buy them with mostly. And just things like that. So, you know, your memory clouds things a little bit. And you tend to remember the good things.
My husband, when he was a small boy, he was brought up in Walker County, Alabama. It is a coal mine district. And he was paid 10 cents a shot to go into the coal mines and to light the fuse on the blasting powder and then run like blazes to get out before the thing exploded. And men wouldn't do it, grown men wouldn't do it because they couldn't move fast enough. So they hired him because he was small and wiry and he would get out of there before it blew up. Well, when his father found out about it, he whooped the tar out of him.
All right, we're going to stop there. For now. Oh. Okay. Let's back here. All right, so now what we're going to do is each of you guys have a partner next to you, and if you don't, find somebody close to you, and you're going to pair up and just talk about what you observed during this film. Okay?